Let me start with my usual caveat. Do not believe a word that I'm going to say to you until or unless you try it out. Which, as I mentioned yesterday, now gives me liberty to say exactly what I want. I mentioned what we all know, which is we are at a transformative moment. I haven't a clue how it's all going to turn out. I do know that whatever sort of eternal structures we might think exist and support our world are seriously over question. That's political, economic, social, personal. It is, on the one hand, I find it an enormously exciting moment. It is, on another hand, a moment of some concern. It's at that moment when things fall apart that you can actually see down into the depths. That's what makes it an opportunity. When everything's fitting well and tightly laced, you can't get past all of the surface. One of the things that happens in the transformative moment, whether it's your own personal transformation, like the shit hit the fan and you're trying to figure out where to go, or it's a collective enterprise that we're all involved in, or more usually both. Typical response is circle the wagons. Hang on to what was. If it's all changing, make sure that the little bit that you knew about remains. And that's quite understandable. And probably essential. But there is a price. As you close the space, you stop breathing. Physically, emotionally, reaching out to other people. And so, for whatever it's worth, opening space is useful. We, and it's not me, we have been engaged in this marvelous 30-year natural experiment called open space technology. Real complicated, sit in a circle, create a bulletin board, open a marketplace, go to work. The results, every time, not once in a while, but every time, essential preconditions are present at the start, which would be a real issue, a lot of complexity, a lot of diversity, lots of conflict, and some sense of urgency. Every time, with whatever group, wherever in the world, two really incredible things have just manifest. Peace, in the sense of hugely conflicted parties beginning to learn how to dance together, and maybe even dancing together, and flow, and high performance, which my good friend Peter Vail defined a long time ago, very simply. High performance is better than the competition. Doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And what he could have added, and I will add, is that it's not just better than the competition, but it beats your own expectations to hell. You just knew you couldn't do that. And somehow it happened. you ended up in some place you never could have imagined. Now, we've only done this, whatever, 350, 400,000 times, 146 countries over 30-odd years. And so I guess at some level we might say the day's in. That doesn't talk about proving anything, but there is some experience. So it might seem, given the transformative moment and the nature of that what we ought to be doing is lots of open space technologies all over the place. That's going to be fun. But there's 7.5 billion of us on this planet and counting. And that probably isn't going to work out. It's nice when we can do it. It's a good practice spot. It's fun to drop by. But whatever it is that needs to happen is going to have to move an awful lot faster and spread farther and quicker than doing an open space event every now and again. One of the things that I've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed the same, is that folks will come to an open space event, such as us, and they'll get over, and somebody somewhere will say, you know, this was really wonderful. I probably have to go back to reality, or Monday morning, or whatever. For a number of years, I just sort of looked at that, and I thought it was very interesting. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed to me, and it totally by the wrong foot. This is reality. All the rest of this stuff is a fabricated invention. I recognize that as heresy. But one of the things I think we've learned is that open space technology works not because of my brilliance or anybody's brilliance as a facilitator. It works because self-organization works, which is exactly the reason that the whole cosmos is here. So if this is a process amongst other processes, it's unlike any other process. You don't do it. It does you. I love David Cooper writer and appreciative inquiry and dialogue and all the rest of it. Very honestly, that's too much work. That's just me talking. But self-organization is what we are, is what we do. And when we open space, let it happen. It's not about adding something. It's about fully recognizing and honoring what's there to begin with. Lots of times people will say, oh, how do you get people to choose open space? And the answer to that one is you can't. It's all open space. They have no choice. Just as they have no choice about living in gravity. They have no choice about the sun giving you skin cancer. They have no choice about a whole variety of things that just constitute the nature of our existence. But it is true that we manage to, I would say, pretend in complex and fearsome ways so that what is in fact a totally natural occurrence, shorthand, high performance and peace, is not something we have to work to create. There is no process to run through. There are ways of tidying stuff up afterwards. People might say I'm very fond of them. I like them. performance in peace is what the creation is all about. It's a natural phenomenon. So, opening space, if I can use those words, is fun, you know, when we sort of get together like this. But that's just a little too local. Local in the sense there happen to be 7.5 billion other folks out there. One of the things I've learned, and I suspect you've learned the same thing, is that when you open space for yourself, you inevitably open space for other people. I mean, it's embarrassing. But when you create the space for yourself to breathe, which is the precursor to superior performance on your part, that works every time. And peace, internal peace, where the bits and pieces of all that you are start to flow together. Not without some conflict here and there, but that just shows where the passion is. This isn't something you have to get somebody else to do for you. Sometimes we get seriously sick and we do need a little help, but that's 1% of the time, maybe 0.5% of the time. Mostly it's about allowing the high performance that we are and the peace that we can experience to be. So it used to be that, of course, you had to come to an open space event. But if it turns out that it's all open space, it might be that we can learn from our common experience together in open spaces something that might be of use every day. I mean, why do we have to come here, or wherever here, to experience what is, as far as I'm concerned, a totally natural, God-given birthright of us all, 24/7? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And to help us along the way, I don't think there's any magic in this, but we've learned 5 principles. And what a lot of people think is, these are things you're supposed to do. That's wrong. These are things that happen anyhow, and you're just a lot healthier if you notice them as you go about. Furthermore, we do not have to be sitting in a circle with other wonderful people to be able to create this. We can make the circle anywhere we want, anytime we want. On the subway, in the car, with our families and friends, with the folks that we think of online, you know, there's no stop. And just to remember, whoever comes are the right people. Is a fantastic way of making sure that every instant is rich and full. Not saying we have to have this person or that person, but whoever happens to wander into our space brings the gift of added space, which is ours to accept. I love riding on the New York subway. Everybody is so strongly closing their space. I mean, as the guerrilla theater and whatever started out, I think it's one. It's amazing if you just look somebody in the eye, they go frantic. It gets them every time. Whoever comes to the right people. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have. Sounds like a no-brainer, but you know, we spend most of our lives, lots of times, thinking of all the reasons stuff can't happen, shouldn't happen, should have happened, didn't happen, might have happened, could have happened. To the point that just absolutely are blind to this present instant. In this present moment, are gifts and opportunities that will never happen again. There's richness for us that we simply have to open ourselves to. And in opening ourselves to it, we open the same thing to anybody around. Whenever it starts is the right time. I love these folks who teach time management. We're so desperate that we won't get it all done, that we have to manage the time. And it's also true, no meeting in the history of the cosmos ever started on time. Period. No exceptions. Always happens when it happens. Tells us a lot about creativity, otherwise known as high performance. It never happens when the clock says whatever. It happens when it's ready. Whenever it happens, it's the right time. And then a fifth principle that we just sort of learned about. Wherever it happens is the right place. A marvelous lady from Cairo was describing her experience in Tahrir Square. And she talked about the million-odd people who were out there, and they swirled together in tight little groups. And if you listen to what they said, it sounded like the same kind of thing that people talk about, quote, in an open space. It's intense, it's intimate, it's, mind-blowing. But if you watch these million people, wherever it happens is the right place. And then the last one, when it's over, it's over. It's an absolute fact, I believe, that everything that we're likely to run into has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, we do our very best to avoid thinking about or countering the end. We'll get pretty frantic about that. And there's reasons for that. But I'm going to do any different. It's over. Now, the bad news about ending is all that familiar stuff is gone. That could be you. The good news about ending is there's a whole mess of new space. And it doesn't just have to be about individuals dying. It's not that. But it's about ideas and processes and what have you. The Model T was wonderful. But we had to open some more space to get something else. The Maseratis never would have happened. Worked there. So when it's over, it's over. And part of welcoming open space is to see in the overness massive opportunity. Now, sometimes that gets real painful, we all know that. And I'm not trying to take the pain out of it. I can't. But I can tell you my own experience, try it with yours. Most of that pain at that point of ending is a self-inflicted wound. It's us trying to hang on to whatever was there. The life partner, that way of life, that particular set of ideas, whatever. And there comes an incredible moment when you let go. And when that happens, in my own experience, try it for yourself. There's this incredible sense of liberation and opportunity and new possibility. I mean, I'm not saying it's not without a few tinges, whatever. I mean, what the fuck am I going to do now? But isn't that a wonderful thing to be able to ask? I mean, I thought my life was totally squished and predetermined, and now, guess what? It's all brand new. You don't have to do any of those things. They'll just happen by themselves. But what if you try and stop them from happening? What you're going to do is just close your space. If you spend all your life being terrified of strangers instead of saying whoever comes is the right person, your space gets closed. If you spend all your life saying there's only one way to do things and don't recognize that whatever happens is the only thing that could have, your space gets closed. If you spend all your life waiting for the clock to tell you to move, your space gets closed. If you spend all your life saying, I can't possibly get any of this good stuff until I can get back to International House or whatever, your space is closed. And if you spend all your life worrying about the fact that it's going to be over, you'll never live. So that's going to happen to you anyhow. The only question is it going to be the way you live life, which is, I think, kind of the way it is? Or are you going to try and put it in a box and make it something different? Then we have the law of 2 feet. Lots of times that sounds just like irresponsibility. There's lots, but it's you making the choice. The law says very simply, I always smile when I say it, if at any time you're in any place where you're neither learning nor contributing, take the 2 feet. Now, there are times, but it's your choice. But don't think you're doing anybody a favor to sit around and be totally miserable. You're not making their day. It's as simple as that. For all of us, and there are thousands of situations where you say, wait a minute, I can't, I got family like this and that and the other. Okay, fine. Those are responsibilities. That's my choice. But if I am making everybody so miserable because I'm miserable, I am not doing anybody a favor. And what I've effectively done is closed down that space. And to quote one of my favorite poets, it's an absolutely wonderful prescription for living lives of quiet desperation. That's called life without space. Oh yeah, be prepared to be surprised. If you really think you got it figured out, go ahead and cash it in now. If you really think you got the answers, I am so sorry for you. The most wonderful thing that I experienced after 80 years on the planet, and hopefully I experienced it a lot of time before, is that incredible moment of sitting in the middle of a question that's so deep and so profound, there's just endless amounts of space. It's the question. For whatever it's worth, I don't think, beside the point that every poem is a question. It's all questions. Questions create space. Answers remove them. And surprise, just reminding ourselves to be surprised. You know, we're all taught we should just keep right on toiling on. And when surprises come, we work really hard not to be surprised. It's amazing. Here's one of the sweetest moments that you'll ever run into. And you do your very best to cancel it out, right? Oh, I couldn't happen. That couldn't possibly happen. Didn't happen. We all know that this surprise that we experience, we call it space technology, it simply couldn't happen. It does. And it doesn't just have to happen here. It happens everywhere. So anyhow, in our transformative moments, or moment, we got a lot of work to do as Homo sapiens, that's human beings. And I am very, one thing I'm absolutely sure of is nobody has a clue at this juncture what's coming next. And that is the ultimate question. That, to me, is the ultimate opportunity. Now, the rules haven't changed, but stuff gets over. It'll happen to this planet, our sun, us someday. Factor one. But in the interim, this isn't something you have to do to yourself or anybody else. It's all about allowing. It's not even about working. Folks who know me well enough, or have seen me long enough, find that in most cases, you get into something like that, this great new way of doing something, and I say, yeah, sorry guys, you're working too hard. I'm not saying there aren't many things to do and think, and technologies to create, fun things to have, and, you know, I love to create stuff like that and do it, sweat over it. But listen, the easy stuff, just let it happen. We got a whole day. You're going to take that or not, wherever you want.